The symposium, a social event that was featured in many ancient literary philosophical works such as those written by Plato, Plutarch, and Xenophon. Many depictions of it are featured in ancient Greek pottery. Its origins are obscure, but it is believed that it originated in a Greek city-state of southern Italy around the late 7th century BC. The practice was soon adopted by the Athenian elite, followed by many other Greek city-states, while it also spread to the Etruscan and Roman societies. But what exactly was the ancient Greek symposium, and what was it like participating in one? The symposium was a drinking banquet organized and held by wealthy men, predominantly of aristocratic descent. The reasons one may have to host a symposium were various, though it was mostly organized to celebrate either the return of a close relative or a victory in an athletic, political, or theatrical competition. The symposium took place in the andron, the men's quarter of the house. The size of the andron was not very large, so the amount of guests was usually restricted, numbering between 5 and 25 people, although the ideal number according to the ancient Greeks was 9. The host of the house would invite the men himself. Since the symposium was a private event, arriving uninvited was considered very rude, with some minor exceptions like the close relatives of the host. Sometimes, the host would pay famous people like Olympic winners to partake in the event in order to make an impression to the rest of the guests. When the guests arrived, they would enter the andron and lay upon the clinae, which were tall, pillowed couches that could fit up to 2 people. These would be placed in front of 3 walls of the room. The men would lie on the couches with their upper body upright and their left arm placed on a pillow. If very young men were invited though, they were usually not allowed to sit, as they were not yet recognized as full-fledged members of the elite society. At first, the servants would bring tables in front of the guests, upon which appetizers and snacks such as chestnuts, beans, and various sweets were placed. After the men finished eating, the servants would remove the plates and bring in a large crater. At that point, the participants would elect a symposiarch, meaning the leader of the symposium. Most of the times, the man that they elected was the host of the house. The symposiarch was the one in charge of deciding the percentage of wine and water, because as we mentioned in previous videos, the Greeks preferred their wine diluted. He also decided the number of craters that the participants would consume. If the symposium was held in order for the men to have a political meeting, they would drink up to 3 craters of wine, but if it was held in order for them to celebrate, then they would usually consume more than that. Due to the ancient Greek notion of moderation, many of the symposiums did not exceed the 3 crater limit, but then again there were also many that would largely surpass it, with the symposiasts becoming so drunk that they had to be carried back home. In a comedic play written by Eubulus, the god Dionysus describes the proper way of drinking wine. For sensible men, I create only 3 craters. One for health, which they drink first, the second for love and pleasure, and the third for sleep. After the third one is drained, wise men go home. The 4th crater is not mine anymore, it belongs to bad behavior. The 5th is for shouting, the 6th is for rudeness and insults, the 7th is for fighting, the 8th is for breaking the furniture, the 9th is for vomiting, and the 10th is for madness and unconsciousness. After the symposiarch made his decisions, the participants would make libations to the god Dionysus by calling out his name and pouring undiluted wine on the ground. After the libations, the symposium would begin. The servants would carry the diluted wine from the crater and fill the guests' kilixes, which were vessels particularly made for wine consumption. They would continuously refill the kilixes for the duration of the symposium, with the symposiarch often reminding the guests to drink. If the symposium was not held for a political meeting or a philosophical discussion, the participants enjoyed themselves in various ways. One of the most usual was to recite poetry. The men would try to demonstrate their intellectual skills through a competition of poems. They would also sing paeans together, which were songs about athletic or military triumphs. Many times there were extra guests in the symposium, of which musicians were the most common. The usual instruments that were played were the double pipe flute, the lyre, and a bass-type lyre called kithara, the ancestor of the modern guitar. A small theatre company or an acrobatic troupe could also be invited to perform in front of the symposiusts. Although the women of the house were denied access to the men's quarters, there were women present in the event that either played music or performed acrobatic acts. The ones that were most frequently present though were the heterae. The heterae were high-class prostitutes that were not confined to the sexual intercourse. They were also very educated and worked as artists and entertainers among other things. Some of the heterae were the ones that played music in the symposiums. They were generally the most independent women in the society and could, although rarely, engage in long-term relationships with men from the aristocracy. The heterae that took part in the symposiums would sit, talk, drink, and sing with the men. The symposium also included games, the most famous of which was called kottabos. The competitor would hold a kylix in his right hand and would throw wine to a target across the room. The objective was to knock out a small disc called plastics, which balanced on the top of a bronze stand in order to make it fall on a larger disc situated in the middle of the stand. Not holding the kylix right or spilling too much wine was a disqualifier. The players would usually shout out the name of a person that they were in love with before throwing the wine, believing that if they managed to knock down the plastics, they would win their heart. Sometimes monetary bets were placed while playing kottabos. In conclusion, the symposium was an ancient aristocratic banquet that included drinking, eating, talking, flirting, playing games, listening to music and other activities that the symposiusts found enjoyable.